You're listening to the My Simplified Life podcast, and this is episode number 46. Welcome to the My Simplified Life podcast, a place where you will learn that your past and even your present don't define your future. Regardless of what stage of life you're in, I want you to feel inspired and encouraged to pursue your dreams, simplify your life, and start taking action today. I'm your host, Michelle Glogovac, and I'm excited to share my stories and life lessons with you while taking you on my own journey. This is My Simplified Life. Hey friends, welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Michelle Glogovac. Today, we're doing something a bit different. I recorded an episode with my good friend, Allie Casazza from The Purpose Show, and I'm sharing it with you today. The Purpose Show is a top 100 podcast with over 3,000 reviews and 5.5 million downloads. Allie has accomplished all of this in under 3 years, and she started it off by recording on her phone and editing herself. You might remember hearing Allie on the show earlier this year, and our conversation actually led to an incredible friendship and now a collaboration. Our chat today is about all of the reasons you need to be creating a podcast for yourself. If you've been on the fence about this, then you need to hear why we feel it's so important for you to start one. I hope you are beyond pumped to hit record after this episode and cannot wait to cheer you on as you put your voice out into the world. So be prepared to be inspired.
All right. Hello, friends. I am sitting here face-to-face because we're doing video with my friend, Michelle. Hi, Michelle. Thank you.
Hi, Allie. Oh, I'm so excited to be sitting here with you in my closet.
I know. Me too. I'm so excited. And your closet, okay, she's in her closet and it's like way more organized than mine. So let the record show, though, I always have said that I like minimalism, not organization. So I'm fine. I'm like the one that teaches minimalism and I'm like, wow, your closet's really organized.
I got rid of everything on this rack right here so I could fit my table tray underneath it for when I'm not recording in the middle of the closet. So
amazing.
Priorities. That's what
amazing.
That's
about. Good job. Okay. So we're going to talk to you guys about podcasting today. And first, I want you guys to understand, I feel like we're amazing. We the two of us together, really, I'm so happy to be partnering with you in the course that we're launching, the stuff that we're doing together. But today on the podcast, you guys, Michelle and I really spent a lot of time talking about, okay, how can we give away something for free that will help women that want to start a podcast and they have all kinds of fears around why they can't or why they shouldn't or why it's going to be so hard, and just really empower you guys. And so before we start that, I just want you to understand who Michelle is and her experience and expertise, and we'll kind of talk about that, and then we'll get into all the nitty gritty. So Michelle.
Thank you. I am Michelle Glogovac. I am the founder and CEO of the MSL Collective, which is a full-service podcast production and PR agency, and I am the host of the My Simplified Life podcast. I've worked with top-ranked podcasters to launch their podcasts, produce their podcasts, create content, repurpose it. I do everything that there is to do with a podcast. So that's me in a nutshell. I wasn't always a podcaster in the podcast industry. I came from 18 years in corporate aviation. So there was definitely a switch, and I have learned everything that there is to create a podcast because of that switch.
Yeah, for sure. So, and with the two of us, why we came together and we really clicked is because Michelle is an expert in everything about podcasting, but especially the behind the scenes stuff that's the tech and how and what do you do about this problem and how do you set it up on the back end and just the stuff that's overwhelming. And so with the two of us together in this partnership, that's really what she's bringing to the table. And then I, of course, can be more helping you with all the front stuff and what do you do? How do you talk? How do you plan episodes? And we're both teaching everything, but Michelle's expertise is so techy and so sound. It is so solid for you guys to learn from her. It's an absolute huge blessing for her to be here today and for the two of us to be able to be together and doing this for you guys on a free podcast. So I'm super excited.
Thank you. I'm so honored. You talk so nicely about me.
You're amazing. And you really have a big gift. And podcasting is like, I was just saying on a live stream recently that like, I don't think people realize how many people listen to podcasts. Like it was like 69% of the US population like listens to podcasts. Like people are listening to podcasts on a regular basis. And for people that have a business or a message, it's huge because you're literally in the ears of your ideal customer. It's intimate. You're a part of their day. And to just like not be deliberate about that or be afraid to start that, like you're missing out on so much opportunity. So I love talking about this and getting people to say yes to the podcast they've been thinking about.
I totally agree. I think it's one of the best marketing tools that you can have that's out there. And we'll talk about this later, but how you can spread it to multiple levels and platforms just by having a podcast. And it's not as hard as people think. It's so valuable. And I think that it brings so much worth and education and knowledge to other people. And that's really why I do what I do, because I think that everyone has something they need to share. And it's something that others want to hear, whether you believe it or not. Somebody has a message that needs to be heard and they're listening. So if you change one life, that's more than anyone else could ask for.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So we're going to talk to you guys about what it is that you need to know to finally start the podcast. And we really want you to walk away from this feeling empowered. So we're not getting in like super techie or anything like super psycho specific, because we want you to walk away with the feeling that you have been empowered, your limiting beliefs are knocked down, and you can now move forward and figure all the other stuff out yourself or with our help, because we have a course, but to really empower you to like decide to start. We want to empower you to decide to start finally and stop putting it off. So the first part of that we were talking about before we recorded is we think that there's just so many people that don't understand the worthiness of their message. They don't feel worthy of even taking up space and getting their message out there. And I mean, I know you have a lot of experience with that because you are behind the scenes of a lot of podcasters and you see like their struggles before they start, you know?
Yeah, including my own, because, you know, I've worked with many podcasters and they all are larger than I have been. And when I decided to start my own podcast, I was like, you know, what is it that I have to share that others are going to want to hear? Yeah. And just starting out with saying, you know, I made a career switch after becoming a mom, and here's the story behind it and the struggles that I've had. And here's what I've learned. People listened and they continue to listen. And I found it to be surprising as to who is listening. Like you least expect it. And my husband has a coworker who told him the other day, he's like, just tell Michelle that I'm always listening to the podcast. I appreciate what she says. And I was like, what? Yeah, people are going to listen and appreciate what you have to say. They want to hear it.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think too, like, I think when we struggle with worthiness around our message, if we struggle with, well, who am I to take up space, or who am I to take up people's time? I heard that recently. You know, I'm just struggling because I'm taking up people's time in their day. Do you have a message? Do you have something to share that's going to make people's lives better, help them understand a topic deeper? Like your message is needed. People need to hear from you. Your message is worthy. You are worthy. And I think, like I said this recently in Up and Up, and I'll say it again. I think when we focus so much on the fact that, oh, well, I just don't want to take up space, like I'm not worthy, who am I? And we focus on ourselves and trying not to be selfish, like you're being selfish because you're making it all about you. And your message is not about you. Like your business and your message are not about you. It's about them. Like for me, it's about her, the woman that needs my help, that's overwhelmed and wishing she wasn't a mom anymore and needs my help. And me taking up space is her space that she needs me to take up. So we have to get out of this idea that like, well, I just like don't want everyone to think that it's like all about me, or we just have to stop that.
Yeah, I love that you said you're selfish if you're not doing it, because I completely agree. Somebody needs to hear what you have to say. No matter what it is, somebody needs to hear it. And, you know, don't look at your numbers when you start out, because they might not be ginormous, but who cares? You know, if you get one download, that one person wants to hear what you have to say, and they'll keep coming back and the word will spread.
Yeah.
But you have to share your message, your story, your services, how you can help others, because others are waiting to hear how you can help them.
For sure. And I think also like having a podcast and putting your message there is so unique and so, in my opinion, almost always the right answer for how to get your message out, because it doesn't matter if you like have a physical product or like a brick and mortar, but you have like a message around it that you want to share, or you have a message-based business like I do, like I'm basically selling a lifestyle change, or you have like coaching services or digital products or whatever. If you're able to get in people's ears and you're able to, for free, communicate to them why they've been feeling the way they've been feeling, that they're not alone, that there is a better way, that in your experience, it's this, and you can help them and walk them through things for free, like that is so generous. So we have to get out of this, like, oh, I'm feeling being selfish. I'm making it about me and I don't want to. No, like this is generosity. You don't have to podcast, but if you want to grow a business, you have to get your message out there. And I think podcasting is the most ease of use for the consumer and the most popular right now, and easy for you as the creator. And like, why wouldn't you? I think I spent 3 to 4 hours per blog post when I was just blogging before podcasting was cool. And now it's like, I know, Michelle, you do all your own back end stuff. And even when I was doing that, it was way less than blogging. Now I just sit down and do the message. And even if I was editing, tack on another 30 minutes to an hour or whatever, but it's still less. And I enjoy it more. And you're getting your message in a more like ease of use for the consumer than somebody having to like read an entire blog post. Like they can go and do other things while they're taking the content this way. It's from a place of generosity and helpful for the consumer. Nothing about this should be like, oh, I'm being selfish. Like, I don't like it. It's the opposite of that.
Yeah, I totally agree. And when you talk about the blog post, we'll get to this too, but you can create a blog post from your podcast. So there's so much more that you can do. And if we talk about like expenses, not just time, but money too, it's one of the most inexpensive, effective ways that you can market your business.
Absolutely. You're so right. Okay. So when you feel like you're understanding that your message is worthy, or you know what, and I want to add this really quick too. And Michelle, if you have anything else to add, tell me. But I think like if you're hearing this, but it's not really sinking in, you guys know I'm going to tell you to do the inner work. Like I think that maybe there's inner work that needs to be done. I would encourage you to like pause this episode, grab a journal, sit for 1 minute and just think like, where in me do I not feel worthy to get my message out into the world? What have I been told? What has been assumed about me? Like for example, when I was a child, I always was told and felt very much like, don't be so dramatic. Don't be so much. Don't take up so much space. Like, calm down. It's not about you. It's not about you. Like, you're being selfish. I used to get told, like, what a prima donna, like, relax. And so I had all this messaging that, like, it's bad for me to take up any space. So when it came time for me to get my family out of where we were and start this business and this podcast and start talking and taking up space, like, I definitely had stuff come up. But you are in charge and you have to sift through that and do the work and get to a place where that's a lie. I have a mission here and I need to show up and do it. And my limiting beliefs don't hold any weight now that I realize that. And you can undo them that way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I love that. And I would also add that don't be afraid to pivot. That if you start and your message is going one way and you suddenly decide to go another way, it's okay. It's yours. Your podcast is absolutely yours. Take ownership of it and do with it what you want.
Yeah. And it should evolve with you. Like my messaging has evolved with me as a person because I'm a personal brand. And even like, let's say you have coffee beans, an online coffee store, and you sell coffee beans. You're messaging about like why you used to pick these beans and roast this way and why you don't now. Like even that, it's silly and small, but even that is a pivot. Like be open and honest about who you are and what you're going through and just share from the heart authentically. It doesn't mean you have no boundaries and you have to like you're living in a fishbowl and everyone can see what you're doing. But it's just about when you're authentically you, there is no pressure to like perform a certain way and be a certain way because you're just being yourself. And people will like that and other people won't like that. And that's just a fact. And you're calm and confident in yourself and in who you are and in your own message. So everything else just falls by the wayside because it doesn't matter as much as you know that you're here for this message. So once you feel that you're worthy of getting your message out there, that people need to hear from you, the next step would be to define your message. Like, what exactly are you even going to say? Michelle, I would love to hear from you on like what you think about that, listening to podcasts for a living.
Well, I think that you can pivot along the way. That's part of this whole pivot thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, I love to do a brain dump of what is it I want to talk about? What do I think is worthy content that's out there? And whether you're talking about your own content or guests, maybe there's someone that you're like I love Allie and I love Allie's message. And I want other people to hear about Allie, because as big as you are, not everybody in the world knows who you are. Mm-hmm. So how great is it for you to have an opportunity to bring someone onto your podcast and share their message as well, and how it's affected you? So there's so many different ways that you can spread your message and get that out there. It doesn't just have to be about you. It can be, things that you've learned along the way and the people who have influenced you. And that can all be a part of your message and who you are. So I say, go dump everything that's in your brain of what would I want to hear about? What is it that on the podcast that you listen to that spark your interest? What is lighting you up and exciting you and that you want to hear more of or learn more of? And work from that. Let it just kind of flow, because nothing is written in stone. You can start recording an episode and go totally over to the right and then go back over to the left, and it's all yours. So I think that's important to remember.
Yeah, for sure. This is also why I don't name the episodes until I'm done recording them.
Me either.
Because it's like, I think you're starting with one thing, but then I'll but you know what? This leads me to this. And it ends up being this very expansive episode. And yeah, I think that's like what Michelle just said. It's so key, because what do you enjoy doing? I was talking with a friend, Joe Sanek. He's a podcaster as well. And he was telling me how he hates solo episodes. Like, he sometimes feels like he has this message and he's like, this is really helpful. I really need to share this. But he cringes. He hates it. And I was telling him, I can't even fathom this. I didn't know anyone could even feel that way, because I love solo episodes, and because I'm so passionate about what I teach. And I really struggle when I have to interview a guest. I feel like I didn't sign up to be Oprah. I don't like to interview. I don't know, what are they expecting of me? It brings a whole different dynamic. And I really don't like those episodes as much. But I like this, where it's a friend, and we text each other and we're doing work together outside of this. Or I really did read this amazing book and I would love to speak to the author, but I'm not having this formal interview where let's promote your book. I hate that. I can't do it. And so what are you going to say can also look like, how is it going to come out for you? Do you find that you love recording solo episodes and you have a very specific message you're passionate about, and this podcast is for you to speak? Do you find that you only want to interview guests? Do you want to be basically a podcast book club? This is an amazing idea. Wow. I'm going to steal it for myself. But and interview authors. Do you want to only interview certain people in a certain niche? Do you want to have a hybrid podcast like mine, where it's a little bit of both? But what are you going to say? How is it going to come out of you? What's the vibe that you want people to feel when they come into your space and your podcast and they listen? What is the message? What's the niche? Who are you trying to reach? And are you going to do a mix? Are you going to do just guests? Are you going to do solo? How are you going to plan that out? And what is that going to look like coming out of your mouth for people? And just getting really clear. And I think when you get really clear, that's where confidence comes in. Okay, I've got a good picture of what I'm doing with this show. I think I'm ready to start it, versus not knowing and then just starting from thin air. Not everybody can do that. It's nerve-wracking sometimes.
Yeah. And I've pivoted along the way in mine as well. I did a lot of solos in the beginning with just sprinkled interviews. And then this year I really did a lot of interviews, and people bring so much. I like to think I know something, but when you involve other people and their wealth of knowledge, then you're, expanding that knowledge for other people as well. Yes. So, and whatever you think, you can have some weird episodes. I have one that's entitled Why I Love Funerals. Honest, I love funerals, and I go into people are like, what? And I don't have a Christian podcast or something. It's not about God. It's about getting to know people. It's that's the whole premise behind it. So you get to create whatever you want. And I think that's something that's beautiful.
I love that. I love that so much. And yeah, I think like there's a lot of trainings in podcasting where it's like, it should only be about your business. And that's not true. I have a lot of episodes that really have nothing to do with my business. And it's just like something that I want to share to encourage and make this a positive space on the internet, you know?
Well, and I think in regards to that, when we talk about business, what you're doing in podcasting is you're letting people get to know who you are. And that's why they're going to want to work with you. So, you know, your content doesn't have to be full-blown. So my content has to do with, you know, switching careers and learning some tools and tips on building your new business. But that's not what my business is about. My business is about podcasting and PR. Except if you get the opportunity to hear me and what I say and how I interact with other people, then it's going to make you want to work with me. Or maybe it doesn't, and that's fine too. Right. But it eliminates that whole vetting experience. And this is why getting your voice out there is going to help you market your business, because people get to know you and then they really want to work with you.
Right. People buy from people and stories and feelings, not from businesses. Mm-hmm. So much more effective.
For those of you who have been wanting to start that podcast, I want to help you do it. I want to help you create it, launch it, and do it the right way. Once you've launched it, I want to help you keep it going, keep it engaging, grow an audience, make money, and most importantly, make an impact. Allie and I have worked together, and along with becoming great friends who are always voice texting and sending each other thoughts and snippets of our lives, we decided we needed to come together and to create a program for you. As it stands right now, there are no podcast courses that will teach you everything there is to know about creating a podcast. I'm talking about the tech side, the nuts and bolts about all things podcasting, and how to master the creative content creation side. There is nothing like what we have created out there right now, and it is so needed. We are filling this gap in the market, and we cannot wait for you to get in here and see what it's all about. Allie is the host of The Purpose Show, who took a tiny podcast from nothing to over 5.5 million downloads in a couple of years, which is just absolutely amazing. I'm the producer of a number of top shows, and together we have created a program called Podcasting Confidence. In it, you're going to receive the absolute 411 of podcasting. From start to finish, from brainstorming to launching, to creating episodes, to sustaining your podcast and expanding it and your podcast audience. We are going to give you everything you need to create your episodes, publish them out into the world, and have confidence knowing that you did a good job and it's what your people need and will resonate with. We are going to help you spread the word about your show and gain an audience. We're going to help you create a community around your show to cultivate loyal, diehard fans who love you and believe in your message. We're going to help you generate money and sales from your podcast with or without sponsorships, and this course is going to give you the ultimate head start on all of it. We are covering all of the things that you would need to figure out the hard way, the expensive way, the time-consuming way, the discouraging way. You are going to get the pointed, direct answers from two experts in the field who are leading this game. Whether you're ready to launch a podcast or needing help to grow your own podcast, then we are here and we're ready to help you. Head over to podcastingconfidence.com for all the details.
Okay, so you feel worthy that your message is out there. You feel like you've defined what the message is and how it's going to be presented to the world. Now let's get yourself to a place where you're working from ease and flow and talk about letting it be easy and content repurposing. So I want to hear what you have to say about this, Michelle, but I will just say what I've talked about before in the past. I think even on the show, I'm not sure, but at least in the business membership, if nothing else. But for me, my podcast is what I call queen content. So I'm not sitting down and spending time. Okay, today I'm going to create all my Instagram posts for the month, and now all my Facebook group posts and all my Facebook page posts and all my emails for the month. And what are we launching? I got to write those launch emails. And what are we doing on Pinterest? And what, like, oh my gosh, I want to like throw up even saying this. I'm focusing on one thing. And that one thing is this podcast. The podcast is my queen content. So when I pour my heart and my message into the queen content, into a podcast episode, I then turn that into a transcription and it becomes a blog post for SEO purposes on my website. So the show notes are SEO. You can turn it into a blog post and also have a skimmable blog post if you want. We do that. I turn it into engagement questions for my group. I turn it into Facebook posts. I turn it into Instagram posts. Like I take pieces of it and turn it into the other pieces of content. And now I'm at a point where my team does that. So I'm not even doing that anymore. So it's like all of my mental energy is going into one thing, then pulling from the queen to, satiate these other platforms that need my voice as well versus doing, everything all the time. Even my live streams are pulled from past episodes usually, or vice versa. I'll do a live stream and I'll have my mic on and I'm recording a podcast episode at the same time. But either way, podcasting creates an opportunity for so much repurposing and less work. That's what I love about it the most.
You're absolutely right. And that's overwhelming what you just said about all of those platforms because it's the truth. And I think that repurposing your podcast, there's two things. One is you do get to be on all of these different platforms with one piece of content. And that's amazing. The other thing is that that's going to grow your podcast as well. So it's like a double positive. Yeah. You're getting to do all of these, all of these places by creating one thing, and you're gaining new listeners by being in all of these places.
Yes.
And I've sat down, I've worked hard on this. I've identified, I had 11, and now thanks to you, I have 12 different places that you can repurpose your content from one podcast episode.
Are you going to list them or?
Yeah, they're actually in the course.
Okay. Amazing.
They're all in the course. I tell you how to do them in the course. Like, not just
like exactly.
Here it is. Like, here is exactly what you're going to do and how you're going to repurpose it.
Yes.
So, and because one of the things that people ask all the time is, how do you grow your podcast? How do you find more listeners? And this is how you do it. You're going to be in more places than just on Apple and Google.
Yes. And that's the thing. Like, I'm trying to explain to everybody, like, you can create the vision that you are everywhere all the time. It's like this magical visual that like, I see you everywhere. Like, how are you doing this? How are you on Instagram? How are you getting shared there so much? And you're live and you're doing this on Facebook and the group and this. It's because of repurposing. I work very little, but I am everywhere because of working smarter, not harder, and not more. Like, content repurposing and podcasting will create so much ease and flow in your business, like so much. So I love that. I cannot wait. Like, I cannot wait to not only help these women start a podcast, but also like have the tools they need for after it started to like not work all the time and not be like running the clock trying to record like crazy all the time because their episode's supposed to come out tomorrow and they haven't done it yet. Like a plan and a system to really run this like a machine. And I think when you run something like a machine like that, even if you're a one-girl show and you're running it like that, you just get big. You just do, because it's consistent and it's persistent and it's helpful and you know who you are and you know what your message is and you have a plan and you're repurposing your content. You're giving that illusion that you're everywhere when you're actually working very little. That you're already set up as a big person. I'm using quotations. You guys can't see me, but you're acting like a big podcaster, and that's because you're on your way there. And when you're set up like that, it will just explode one day. It just will. It will grow because you're doing all the things right from the get-go that people had to spend a lot of time, energy, and money to learn the hard way.
And once you're set up properly, it makes it much easier to then bring on a team when you become that ginormous podcaster, because you have all of these systems and processes in place from the get-go. So somebody can walk in and just take over and help you.
That's so true. It's so much easier to hire and delegate when you're ready. Okay. So Michelle and I were talking before we recorded, and we were talking about limiting beliefs. And we were discussing how the biggest limiting belief that we have both seen separately when it comes to podcasting is people seem to think that you have to be, somebody with a huge following or somebody, big to start a podcast. I want to hear from you on this.
I am not big, and I started one. So I will be your example. I had maybe 1,000 followers on Instagram. Not even, I don't think I even had 1,000. Mm-hmm. And I started it. And honestly, my first downloads, I probably got 20 people to listen. And I was like, well, hey, that's 20 more than, before. Yeah. But like I was saying before, I think that the possibility to change one life, and it doesn't have to be huge. It can be by letting someone know that they are not alone in whatever they're going through, to give them a piece of knowledge that they wouldn't have had before on how to do something, on how to grow as a person in their business, as a parent. That alone makes it worthwhile. And I truly feel, I believe in it with all of my heart and everything else, that one person is bigger than any of us could ask for. To change a life is such an impact. So you don't have to have a huge following, because if you get that one person, that's all you need, because you've accomplished what needs to be accomplished.
Absolutely. And a lot of the time, because I started this podcast in 2018. So my business was already a couple years old and it was already successful and established. And this podcast helped me so much. It exploded my growth even more. I grew my audience by leaps and bounds. It took me from 5-figure months to 6-figure months, which was a very big leap. And it was only from the podcast. It expanded me so much. But people will look at that and say well, I don't have a business. See, that's what I'm saying. I can't. And it's but what if I would have said that about starting in 2016? Podcasting wasn't really the huge thing that it is today. So it wasn't that for me, but I did have a little podcast. I recorded it on an app called Over in my phone, and I edited it myself, and I uploaded it to Podbean or something weird because I couldn't figure out iTunes or the podcast app or whatever. And no one listened to it. I think there was 10 people that listened to each episode, and they were so nice to me. And I did that for the longest time, and nobody talks about that because they want to well, see though, now you're this. So that's why I feel and I'm but you're not listening to me. I did that with a podcast, but I also had a blog even before that. What if I would have said, I'm not big enough to take up space and to teach this? Then right when I was getting to the height of things, Marie Kondo came out. And I was already doing all of this. And that, I could have let that be a blow and let that be see, better not keep going. No, you have to decide what you want your life to look like. And just because somebody else that's really big is doing a podcast doesn't mean that you shouldn't start one. Even if the niche is the same and the message is similar, it doesn't matter, because you're you. And I feel that's becoming a cheesy thing to say, but I really mean it. No one can do it the way that you would do it. Don't copy people's content. Show up authentically as your own true self with a message that you feel is in yourself, that you want to share with the world, that you want to have a podcast about, and just start talking and start asking for interviews. People can say no, move on, just start. I think the idea that you have to already have some success to even be heard is ridiculous. Even if you just did the podcast and you're right now there's no listeners, but there will be, and I'm just stacking up those episodes while I grow my empire. Great. Those are the people. That's how everyone great started. Everyone great has started from that place. You just don't see it, so you don't believe it.
And I think the other thing we should mention is that just because someone has a similar topic or subject, it's not going to be the same, because you're a different person. You're an individual. So you're going to have your different take, your different spin on it. That's why we have so many people in the same industries, and yet everyone can be successful because everybody does it a different way. You have something unique, and that's what you're going to bring out in your podcast, is your uniqueness, your authenticity, your individuality, and just who you are. Show up at who you are, and that's what people want.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. There's no pie in the sky. There's plenty to go around for everybody. And when you have that abundance mentality, it comes back to you. So be generous, show up on your podcast for free, show up to help people, and let it grow and let it come back to you. Okay. And the last thing that we wanted to talk to you guys about is community. You guys probably know I have the Facebook group, the Purpose Show Community on Facebook, where it's literally an online Facebook group that's attached to the podcast. And doing that was a really big turning point for me, and is absolutely a big part of the revenue and the movement that has been created from my podcast, because it's not just you listen and you leave. There's a community of other women that are also listening to the same thing and also working on the same thing from the same episode and can talk together. So that's been like really, really huge for me.
Yeah, I think community is a huge deal. And I have a lot of clients on the PR side who have podcasts, who have communities, and communities provide opportunities. You know, you never know who's in there and what kind of collaborations might occur because of them. And so it's only going to build, it's just a positive thing. Like no matter how you look at it, it's not negative. There's going to be something positive that comes out of it. And who doesn't want to build a community around people who have similar beliefs, wants, needs, desires, and all want to grow together in the same way? It's a beautiful thing. As corny as that may sound, it's really something that's amazing. And to be the person who does this, who creates this community because of your podcast, that's incredible. That's more impact that you're doing on the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, there's been so much opportunity for me. Like there's been 3 different times where I was offered like a reality TV show, and they all came from the Facebook group, and none of them were what I wanted. So it didn't work out. But like those opportunities came, and me going on Good Morning America came from the Facebook group. And then the other shows piggybacked off of that one. And my agent and people from HarperCollins, like people are watching you. And it's not because I'm a big person. Like I don't see myself that way at all. So when you say that, it's very weird to me because I'm like myself. And I know that I like forgot to put on deodorant today, and that I'm like sitting in the corner of my room. But like, I understand that there's a big following. But even before there was, I started the podcast, and then I started another one with somebody else, and then she left and I started this one. Like there's been so many steps that led here. And if I would have bought into the belief that like I have to be big, or well, I don't have community now, and I didn't just start building it, I wouldn't have the opportunities that community gave me from just starting. So basically our message is start the damn podcast. Create community around it, because community creates opportunity, and show up. It doesn't matter what you have or have not built so far. And podcasting will simplify your business and simplify your life, because it is so easy and fun. And it is the key to repurposing your content. It really is. Anything that we're forgetting?
I think the only thing that I would add is that it doesn't matter whether you like speaking in front of people or not. That you can do this from the comfort of your closet. As I wave my hands around, because I am in my closet, nobody's here. So, you know, whether you're afraid of public speaking or you love public speaking, it can be the most intimate thing that you want it to be. Or you can imagine, you know, your thousands of listeners listening to you, or it can just be a conversation with you and your thoughts in your closet. Absolutely. So there's no reason to be afraid. Whatever your personality, your Enneagram number is, you can podcast and you should be having your own show.
Absolutely. All right, guys, we are going to wrap this up, but please know if this is resonating with you and you want help with this, our course is launching this week and it is going to change your life. We will give you all that information in just a minute here, but just please know that we love you and we want to support you. Michelle and I have both built success from the ground up, and we each have separate expertises that come together to create everything you could ever possibly need to know about not just podcasting, but really creating content and creating a business that has a podcast as a part of it, because that's going to be integral and everything else will happen from there. And so we want to help you get your message out into the world, and we would love to invite you into that and work with us in that space. So thank you guys for listening.
Friends, I am so freaking excited to share this with you all. Podcasting Confidence is the ultimate podcasting course to launch and grow your podcast. And I couldn't be more thrilled to have created this course with Allie just for you. Head on over to podcastingconfidence.com to find out more and drop me a line if you have any questions. As always, stay safe, stay healthy, and remember, your future wants you to hit record.